Commissioners Court will come to order. There's a quorum present, all of our members are present, and all the legal notices are posted, and the court is duly called. Is there a motion to open court? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Bailiff will please open court.
All rise. Dallas County Commissioners Court special call meeting is now in session for this September 2021. The Honorable Clay Lewis Jenkins presiding. You may be seated.
All right, and our first order of business is a public hearing for the Dallas County tax rate. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There is a discussion, and we have registered speakers, and I don't,
No speakers.
Unless
okay.
she got something somewhere, we don't know.
I don't have a list. We don't have any?
No.
Great.
The clerk has no registered speaker, Judge.
Good. Veronica, why don't you take us through the presentation?
Okay, good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Aaron, do you have my presentation? Okay. Can you see that? So the FY22 proposed property tax rate, notice of meeting today was posted. A tax rate of .227946 per 100 valuation has been proposed by the Dallas County Commissioner governing body.
All right, is that
No,
going to be it?
no. Then she can't get the machine going.
Okay, Dallas County continues to maintain a conservative property tax rate. The no new revenue rate is the same as the effective rate that was used formerly. Okay, the no new revenue tax rate for the 2021 tax year, that will raise the same amount of property tax revenue for Dallas County from the same properties in both the 2020 tax year and the 2021 tax year. The proposed new tax rate is .227946. The current tax rate is .239740, which represents a change in a decrease of .011794.
And Dr. Watkins, while that represents a change in percentage, did you have the opportunity to calculate the difference between the current tax rate and the quote proposed no new tax rate in terms of what we are basically, I'll say, leaving on the table?
For the additional revenue?
Yeah.
So the additional revenue proposed by the tax office will raise approximately about $27 million.
27?
Yes, sir, with all funds.
All fine.
Yes, sir. With just the property tax raise, about $24.5 million.
Okay, 24.5. Okay, that's what, thank you, ma'am.
29.3, that's all.
And that's all I have we have
Okay.
speakers.
All right. Is there any public speaker? Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now have a public hearing for the Dallas County budget.
Bill, motion to open the public hearing for the Dallas County 2022 budget.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
It's the same one. Sorry.
The,
Did you want to say anything, or you want me to
Yes.
ask for speaker? Okay.
I have some slides to
just trying to
accompany
get
it.
the slides. We're having difficulty making these slides work for some reason.
the problem is the
You're
computer
fine.
doesn't want to get off this shot right here because it's got that coral jacket. I mean, everyone wants to see that coral. That is really sharp.
This is,
No, that's,
Brett-
it's the
Brett-
same
Brett's
one
got-
here.
I didn't understand that.
it- oh,
It's the same one, it's just go to page
Yeah,
3.
same one, should have gone, flipped over to
Yes.
the next page.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yes.
And then next.
Have this in your.
There you go.
Okay, the FY '22 proposed budget, total tax-supported funds represent 64.13% of the FY '22 proposed budget. Other funds represent 35.87% of the budget. The other funds do include the American Rescue Plan, first tranche of approximately about $255 million. That's included in that total. The total proposed FY '22 budget is $1,570,488,933. I know it's been quoted 1.6 by the Dallas Morning News, so that's where the 1.6 comes from, the total. So, budget highlights. Workforce investment was one of the larger highlights of this budget. Biannual equity pay review, increase in retirement for Dallas County contribution, 2% structure, 3.33% PCE, law enforcement steps increase for eligible staff. And the last one I shared with you on an email, I went through it with Mr. Wilson a little bit last week, the tiered one-time payment premium for employees, grade 13. And that's the 3 categories. We're still tweaking that, but essentially it's going to be tied to the salary structure, okay? And that first payment will be in December, the first pay period in December.
The first payment for which group?
All of the groups will get it. It's just a different tiered approach.
Yeah, I know.
It'd be 950, 600, and then 400. The lower tiered will receive the greater amount.
Okay.
And they will start in December, because I believe we have said that we were going to start with the structure, November.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the PCE first one on January.
In January. And
Okay.
then they will receive the December for the one-tier payment. And those are
On
the
the
only,
lower. Okay,
the
gotcha.
lower level, anyone under that grade 13, grade D salary.
Good, okay, good, because I tried to explain that the other day to someone, and it's like, okay, you get something in November, you get something in December, and you get something in January.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it would be great, Mr. Martin, just for all our workforce, because all the calls that I got were from employees from the city of Dallas. Okay, we're
Yeah.
confused, so what we're getting, when are we getting what? It will be great to put out there, different tiers, different structures for different employees, because I can see why people are confused.
Yes. So additional highlights is 38 new positions, and I provided that list for you on Friday, and that hasn't changed, about 3.6 million, 60 reclasses, 704,000.
A doctor, and of course, I know HR has basically reviewed, those positions, and I continue to try to review, see what's requested. Some of these departments, where there are some requests, how do we're talking about auditing everything else. In terms of metrics, performance, where in our organization, and I know, you're inundated with just getting the budget together. I know Mr. Wilson's out of pocket today, but how we measure the performance of these new positions?
So the great thing this year, the OKRs were linked to a lot of the requests. And also, this is just the first step as far as just saying that we saw that there was a need and these are recommended for review. So they're going to be reviewed by civil service and they're going to go to the different locations and make sure they audit. Ms. Johnson's here if she wants to add anything.
Okay, Ms. Johnson?
For the reclasses.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the departments think they're automatic, but they're going to review them as well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Come on up, Ms. Johnson.
And not just reclass, positions also. They all have to come through you,
Well-
through the civil service before.
Yeah, I know, but I think, and that's one of the reasons in this hearing, just in case people are tuned in, we want them to understand, just because they're requested, doesn't mean they're gonna get them. And then number two, and my other, civil service people will tell you, we continue to query these departments. We got a lot of units out there that still have vacancies. And they haven't, of course, been able to, fill those. And beyond that, how are they performing? I mean, and I'll just use this one. STI last year, how many people did they have? How many people they have this year? What was their performance? And I know it got shrouded under COVID, but this other stuff is still going on, okay? Same thing with immunizations. I mean, we need to start keeping metrics on what people perform. I know each one of us in our staff, I can tell you day to day, 7 days a week, what they're doing, how they are performing. We got people who are just there. We got 40 vacancies, 50 vacancies, and then we turn around and we give them another, 10 or 12. And I guess, Ms. Johnson, good morning. I know you're new to the venue, and I guess we haven't run you off yet, but just kind of tell us, first of all, for the record, who you are, what you're doing now with Dallas County.
Good morning, Commissioners and Judge. I'm Shirley Johnson. I'm the Assistant Director of Human Resources. As Dr. Watkins stated, the first review is just the budget approval. Once it's approved by the budget, then those jobs will come to the Human Resources Department. We will review those positions to make sure that they're needed. We'll also make sure that they line up with the hay points and that they're in line. But that's just the first review. That's not saying that these positions will move forward.
Okay, and I sent Mr. Wilson, and I should have copied you. There's an effort, and I asked how many in our universe with regards to this whole thing with clerk 2s, clerk 3s, and tiers. And what I want to know is, because I'm watching some reorgs, and everybody's saying, well, we won't take clerk 2s to clerk 3s. Well, when I look at the job duties, it's not so much difference anyway. So if you're starting to move them, where are they coming from? It's not as though you're adding more to them. And I'm watching this compression, and I'm sure I'm just telling, I should, I'm putting it in writing. And Mr. Martin, I think I put you on that email chain, because I'm watching these reorgs, and so I know I'm gonna at least be asking, I'm sure my colleague, we wanna know, are we getting more performance as a result of people just getting, reclassified? We use $750,000, reclassify them, hell, ain't doing no more work.
And we have pushed back on some of those reclasses, and we're actually going out and conducting desk audits prior to approval.
And that last one you're talking about, to HR's credit, this is the 4th time they've seen this reclass, I believe, and it has actually shrunk from the huge number it originally was, because they keep pushing back and saying those exact things that you're saying.
Yeah.
Too much compression, where's the change in duties? None of that is evident in the information that they've been seeing. So, to their credit, they've been pushing back a lot on this one department, and, my guess is they're going to continue to do that with all of these.
Correct.
Well,
Then I guess what I'm saying too, the presentation to the civil service, and I really appreciate when it's done as a whole, when you do a departmental reorganization, so that we can understand better, what are you talking about and how is all this going to work together? I mean, that's definitely one piece of it. But the other piece of it too is the development of the assessment and evaluation of individual employees that in the time that I've been here, has really shown a great development, and so that we can get some of the other questions that Commissioner Price is asking. So what's really changing here? What is the work that is actually being done? And is it being done well and to the benefit of
Well,
residents, et cetera, et cetera?
and one of the things about these, quote, department heads, I said something yesterday, when I look at the fact that they've got two ledgers, two sides of a department, and so all of a sudden you want to reclass, and this came up as a result of a job posting. And so I started to ask, and so I did a retracker, and they said, oh, we don't have a position. I said, well, wait a minute. They've sent me a copy of it, IRC, the whole 9 yards. Well, apparently it's coming up under a reclass. So I'm wondering why it's being posted. Because therefore, based on the posting, it's got to be an underfill based on the posting. But then I started to look at the entire organization. And then when I started looking at the organization, I said, whoa. Why do you have all these people over here and you need to reclass someone over here? I mean, they're two sides of the same coin. You can call it whatever you want to. And so I've said, and this is the department head, and I pushed back. I said, this doesn't meet the test. And so I'm just saying, I'm hoping you all are going to be that critical, because I'm going to continue to put it in writing, and then I'm going to ask when it gets to civil service, if that's the case.
And the bigger question that goes along with what you were saying, what Dr. Daniel was just saying, is that what is the impact on the entire organization?
Exactly.
Because when you start doing that in one department, how does that affect the clerk twos in the other departments? And that's what
And that's
HR
what
has
I
to look
asked.
at, that entire organization, so.
That was
One
my
of the
point.
things that you're also talking about is the compression. Some departments are very much looking at how do we do career ladders? And thus they're stretching it out just a little bit more, which, as far as, employees, I know that, people here want to know, well, where am I going? Or is this a dead-end job? But there's a lot more attention being paid to that aspect of it also.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
One of the things I want to add too is the question most of the time when it came up during the budget committee meetings was, do you have vacancies? Can those vacancies be repurposed? And so in a lot of cases, the departments did go back and look at their vacancies, and just instead of asking for additional positions, they looked at whether or not, so a few of those are the result of reclasses too, because they had a position, they're reclassing it.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
So are we in a better place today than we were 5 years ago?
I believe so. I believe so.
Better say yes.
Okay, so the next highlight, your commitment to stand with the plan on replacing vehicles. That number went down a little bit based on, I heard you guys when you told me to look at the HHS vehicles, and they were on. I don't know if you noticed last
Yes.
agenda, and Mr. Hooper has started working on replacing those. He's still looking to see if it's a hybrid or alternative fuel option when I spoke to him. So in this number, or the $2 million that's budgeted, Mr. Hooper, I spoke with him last week. After speaking to Dr. Garcia, 4 vans are planned for juvenile department and 1 hybrid SUV to increase our fleet of alternative fuel.
Can I ask you a quick question about this?
Oh.
There are some of the items on this listing, I don't see a page number on it, but where the total cost within a line is like, you're expecting the cost of one vehicle to be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, right?
Yes.
Is this cumulative? The total cost, the final column?
So which table are you looking at, Commissioner?
It just has a listing of all the vehicles.
Oh, so that's the list that ASC provides, and that's their replacement list. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, replacement list.
In that list, Commissioner, what it is a compilation of all the vehicles
Yes,
that
that's,
are going to be.
it was just adding it all up.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what I just was curious about the last one. So these are single vehicles.
Unless they're identified with more, like 2
Yeah,
or
there
3.
is, there isn't a column for that.
Yeah.
I think the great part about this, what Dr. Watkins is saying, is that we're moving forward with replacement of vehicles that are going to be green vehicles. And I think when we talk about, air quality every year and how bad it's getting, Dallas County is doing their part. We're, the first cars that we had were granted, very little we could do. They were dated very fast. Now they are completely, green vehicles. I mean, not all of them are hybrid anymore, completely electrical vehicles. And not only that, they're fast. They are, no emissions.
Yeah, that's-
But the problem is, and I do have to say, I mean, there's some issues with electric vehicles, is maintenance. And we have a great team in Dallas County. We're probably going to have to train some of them to take care of the maintenance of some of these vehicles. But nevertheless, I mean, it's the chicken and the egg. Where do we start? If we really want to care about our environment, we have to start somewhere. And I want to thank administration and Dr. Watkins for putting that in the forefront. I'm not saying it's going to be cheap, but it's going to be the right thing to do. Thank you.
And I want, because I want to know, and I know those of you who have
Tesla.
those vehicles. How long does it take to charge those dadgum vehicles up? Because I noticed a couple of Jeeps at South Dallas Government Center, which is kind of, in there. I think we've got six fueling stations, and or charging stations.
My car can go without being plugged. Well, obviously, it depends how much I drive it. But, I have lived at the airport for 3 or 4 days. I come back, no problema. Absolutely. I have traveled several times to Austin and close around. You do have to pretty much schedule, be prepared on how much mileage you're going to use from point A to point B. But the Teslas, for example, tells you where the charger stations are. So, I mean, if I'm going to go to Austin, I know how many stops I can get, fuel, use if I need it.
Well,
So I can go all the way without charging it, though.
Okay. And maybe there's some average or maybe something y'all can refer me to out there, because as I said, I've noticed
You need one Commissioner Prime.
That's all right. I can work on the copyright.
Commissioner, the SOP right now is, most of the electric fleet is with our security team too. So every night they're docking, they're charging there too. But we can get you, I guess, parameters. We're Chevy Bolt right now.
Yeah,
too,
I'm
so
fine. I just saw it for 2 or 3 days. I kept looking, it was charged, it was hooked up and kept charging, and all of a sudden, after 2 or 3 days, it was gone. So, I mean, I'm fine. I'm not monitoring. I just didn't know how long it took.
I'll get you that information too.
But we will start monitoring, Mr. Bazan. I mean, all the efficiency of these cars.
We will, especially as we transition to electric. I mean,
Correct.
one big issue that we're working through with Dr. Watkins is half of your fleet is pursuit vehicles too, so you don't have that capacity there
Right.
just yet.
Yeah.
But we are looking and seeing wherever there's an opportunity, whether it's an electric bus or whatnot, we're looking to transition.
And that's the idea, Mr. Bazan. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin and Dr.
Thank
Watson.
This is the last slide. This is one of the ones that I think gives a glimpse of where your passion and love is. Dr. Garcia called me early Friday morning. She said, Dr. Watkins, what are you most proud about this budget? I'm thinking, just trying to close it, just trying to balance it. And she said, just take a moment. So I gave her a list of things that I was proud of. And over the weekend, that question kept going through my mind. And what I'm most proud of is that consistently you guys have shown the love and the passion for your constituents. And it comes out, definitely. But that's what I'm most proud of, because in the end of the day, you're still investing and engaging in community. You're putting you're putting your money where your mouth is. Workforce investment at the end of the day, you're putting back into Dallas County employees as well. So that's what I'm most proud of, is your love and your passion for Dallas County. So this last slide tells you again that you are committed to the community. The community contracts are on today, FY 2022 annual contracts. That's just the briefing. You'll start seeing, as we get the contracts in, them being briefed individually as the different agencies review the contracts. Civil DA has already given the first review. It's gone back to the agencies. The agencies have to sign off on it. Then it'll come back for final briefing.
And that's one of the things that, I'm proudest of for all the attentiveness that both this court and you and your staff have exhibited with regards to this whole thing with community contracts is, how are we leveraging collaboration? That's the key. And I don't care what's North Texas Behavior Health. We are having to hold these contracts to the same level of metrics and production as we talk about our employees, because it's that kind of collaboration, and I'll just use major capital. And I tell people when I do my town hall meetings, this court, as in prior courts, we've taken, $600 million, and we've leveraged $1.2 billion. Bless you. Did that give you a... But anyway, we've leveraged that. And I think we've done that primarily because we've said to our cities, to our partners, hey, there's an expectation. You will not only do the priorities, and if you don't want to do it, guess what? There's somebody else in our district who would, either shovel ready, design ready, will do it. And that's the same thing even with dealing with people. Same deal. Whether we're talking about the quote, living room, the collaboration on what I call alternative care, the care right projects that are in our districts, the diversions, the deflections, that all has to come to collaboration. And so I just want to say to you and to our staff, thank you, because sometimes penetrating those veils are we can go out there and we can stand with our people that feel good about what they think is happening. But a lot of I know it's not in the other cities, but my city, they'll give away the kitchen sink, and we'd be like, okay, we really can't do that. That we've got some other priorities as we move forward. So I just want to say thank you, and as the kids say, sign on, good looking out for all of our constituents.
So the second one is huge for us, especially after these last couple of weekends, the modernization of our financial infrastructure. So having OpenGov, the second year implementation, was very helpful. So I'm very thankful for that. You don't know until you're in the situation how blessed we were to have that as our OpenGov portal to use. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And then we're still doing some other things with IT capital planning. Ms. Kraft and her team, she's being progressive. One thing, my staff, when we were looking at the budget, we saw an increase in cellular phone usage. And so they brought it to my attention. I talked to Ms. Kraft about it. And so one of the things that came out of that conversation was the mobile policy that she brought forth. And so it's collaborating with other departments that would benefit Dallas County countywide. So those type of things have definitely been beneficial as well. Parks and Trails program, I know, is everyone's baby. Public Works did a great job this year of transitioning the TAP program. And so there's funds still to get her through those last trail programs that she took on, Ms. Blair. And then planning and development, open space, there's funds included in the budget for parks and open space and Mr. Tamayo's direction as far as expansion of that program.
Say the community contracts, those are separate and distinct from the ARP funds that we're working with you guys on. So if you have projects or of people who are interested in doing some projects with the county, they can still apply. And we've got the address. We'll shoot that out to you guys. But we'll be bringing those to you guys later on in the fiscal year.
And that's it for me.
All right.
I was just gonna close by saying, Judge, colleagues, and everyone, thank you to all the staff. I know that we start very early working on this budget, and this year, well, we're finishing late. I mean, this morning in one of my meetings, I say, hey, You know, today the Dallas County Commissioners Clause is adopting their budget for next year, and I'll be talking to you about the next budget season in the next 3 months. So that is the nature of the budget, and I just also wanted to thank Dr. Watkins for the information of Dallas County auto allowance presentation. I've been asking for this for a long time, and I'm very happy, Dr. Watkins, that you put it in the perspective that I wanted to analyze it. And colleagues, there it is.
Yeah.
You know, in the future,
There-
$360,000 are there. You never know when you might need it.
Well, we done left 18 million, but I won't even talk about that yet. Sheriff presentation is
right.
on.
Well, one moment. Are there any public speakers?
Well,
Are
I
there-
just wanted to quickly, again, thank the Budget Office for a tremendous job, and thank you for, mentioning OpenGov. It's a great example of what, good process and good software can give you, the opportunity for IT to take a peek and change, policies and procedures based on what they glean from the budget, when often you'd have to wait for someone from budget to tell you when there's a problem. And that may not be readily apparent to anyone but the individuals in the department. So I'm very thankful that you've done a great job with that and allowing for that transparency and allowing folks to get insights into the way that they're doing business. So thank you so much.
When will that be available to the public?
It's already.
The what?
Because I know we can see that right now, but is it after everything has been passed that it'll be open to the public?
So that's one of our strategies for our OKR for next year. So we're going to work on that for transparency. So we can publish the reports and put them on the website, but it's not available for the public to access OpenGov
Right.
at this point.
Our goal is to, by next year, have OpenGov as you see it, open to the public, so they can see it just like we see it.
Okay, okay.
But the highlights are in the website, Dr. Williams, because I look at the website.
So what happens is anytime I make changes, some of you definitely see the notices and you go in and look at the changes, and then I created a dashboard for each one of you. So anytime I make changes to those reports, you can see it and you get notified.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can actually use those reports to create and share with your constituents as well.
Okay, but in the website, dallascounty.org website today,
There's
we
a
can
link.
see the highlights.
From,
Okay,
yes,
sounds good, okay.
But open.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I saw.
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
you can.
All right. So there's some information in the website.
Right, but
Doctor,
it's
so
not
you can
open
say
yet.
dallascounty.org. It's not line by line item, which is what we're going to have when, Dr. Watson?
so we're shooting for, what did I put in my OKR? We said this year. So the great thing is partners, we can't really publish anything till the auditor's office approves it.
Okay.
So there's a delay there when it's pushed to us in OpenGov. So we still need to work through that as well.
I just want to make one last comment. It is so nice to see people without the little boxes around them. So thank you very much for coming down and for being available to answer questions and observe.
So I want to make sure I acknowledge my staff because they work since Labor Day, the weekend, and it's most of their first time at Dallas County through the entire budget season. So I really appreciate their support as well. So that's Faith Dingus, Joey Sanchez, Ashley Blanton, Erica Terrazas, and Christopher Williams, not the Christopher Williams, but the singer, but but Christopher
He is
Williams.
a Christopher Williams, is that?
You have a great day.
He's
So thank
our
you, guys.
Christopher Williams.
So sometimes you might hear from one of them. Sometimes I might tell them to shoot an email, and it's like, is it okay? I was like, it's okay. Just shoot them an email, and ask them this question or that question. So I really appreciate you guys' support. A lot of people ask me, they say, how's it to work for them? I said, they're very supportive. They are very supportive.
Well,
Thank
thank you all.
Okay. The reason, go ahead, Andre.
Do we need to
All right,
vote?
are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Hearing
Judge, I
none.
don't want to close it because part of the conversation in the last Commissioners Court meeting was about the sheriff's budget and and the sheriff's budget is a part of this. And the only reason if y'all already have that, I want to make sure that we clarify those questions that were asked. Number one, they asked us not to raise. It's here and it's clear as to what that presentation is with regards to the budget. So I'll be real quick. It's here, and in light of what we saw yesterday, first of all, I just want to, announce, while the sheriff is law enforcement, he or she is primarily the chief jailer for a county. It is strictly about custody. It is the other law enforcement agencies that present and that she, in this case, must take in to her custody, regardless. Even though she's tried to work with certain agencies, especially regarding Class C matters, we've asked those agencies, law enforcement agencies, to please try to extinguish Class Cs before they get to the Dallas County Jail. As you know, as I said, we're an agency, unlike the Texas Department of Corrections, who comes under the purview of the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. They have a requirement in terms of operations, everything from standards of custody to standards of the facility. And so as such, this sheriff's department, and go to the next slide, please. We've broken it out by the 27 divisions and cost centers that are there. I won't go into all of the actuals, but if you look at 2018, 2019, 2020, and 21, then you'll see the actual versus what was proposed. We have not severely increased this budget. This budget is listed from the largest to the smallest cost center expenditures, but it's primarily because of what has happened in the workforce environment. Yesterday, there were complaints by staff, detention officers, that they were being compelled to work in excess of 8, 10 hours, or sometimes double shifts. Let me just tell you, we every week through the quality assurance get an opportunity to see how many individuals are employed, how many vacancies there are. In addition, we look and see how many people are on intermittent FMLA. At any moment in history in the sheriff's department, there are 300 individuals. Even pre-COVID, we were still running in the 170 to 180, Ms. Johnson, correct? In terms of those numbers. So it's been anywhere from 170 to 300 individuals now doing COVID. All of this not about COVID, but intermittent FMLA has impacted us severely. Additionally, the Sheriff's Department in Dallas County, according to the Texas Commission on Jail Standards, even though we've taken Decker out of our inventory, even though we've taken George Allen, 800 beds, out of the inventory, we're still authorized for about 7,200 individuals. Today, midnight count, ladies and gentlemen, we were at about 5,900, almost 6,000 individuals, which is an increase over what we call pre-COVID numbers. So now the standards say you will have 1 to 48. You will have one detention officer for 48 that is in custody. The sheriff, we have authorized, given those numbers, have 1,450 detention service officers. They service all of the towers, where the housing units are, where people are, in fact, held in custody. There is a different formula for Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a federal act, whereby those 17-year-olds, male, female, have to be segregated. All I'm telling you is that that has a different proportionate impact on the staffing. Dr. Watkins will tell you, we have not had the increase in staffing, but we've had to increase the staffing in the towers so that we will be in compliance with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. My colleague and I, as we co-chair jail sanitation, we know week to week how many are mandated versus how many are volunteers. The complaints are coming from those individuals that are mandated, and I get that. The problem is that the jail does not ever have the opportunity to be out of compliance with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. And as such, that 300 intermittent FMLA has severe impact on the workforce. And so while there are very few vacancies, the Sheriff's Department has in fact now deployed all units to be a part of the, quote, either volunteer or mandated overtime. And so when you look at these numbers from 2018, 165 million to what is proposed today of 194 million, a lot of that has been as a result of the towers. Because when you look at criminal investigation, and I know most of your cities don't have to do it, these are smaller cities primarily. That has increased. Fugitive transportation, when you look at the fact that we have 5,900 individuals, over 700 of them are females. When females are in a custody facility, it has a different proportionate impact than males. The Texas Commission on Jail Standards says a female cannot be in sight nor sound of a male. That has everything to do with the facilities in terms of how they manage it, as well as when they bring those individuals to court. They can't even be in the same holding cell. So it has a proportionate impact in terms of the towers and what has been going on in the facility. So when you look at this budget, and I'll move on, next page, this is a comparison and the vacancies. This will tell you what's going on in the North Tower, the West Tower, the South Tower, classification and release, and Central. And so when you really look at it, you may have in the North Tower, which again is our largest unit as we discussed yesterday in facilities, of the almost 7,000 individuals, over 3,700 of them are in the North Tower. And so the North Tower is our largest unit. When you look at that, we've got 1 million, it's gone from 2021 of 29,455,327 to 31,386. That's 1.9 million. That's over 50% of our population. When you look at the West Tower, that's our behavioral unit. As we talk about in this unit, I think either Commissioner Koch, we've all said it, we've got approaching close to 60% of the individuals who have what we call mental health flags, with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards employing the Sandra Bland unit. We now, every person that comes in must vet through a mental health flag. The West Tower is our behavioral unit. And so in that unit, we've seen it go from 16 million to 20 million, which is 3,800,000. The South Tower, our newest facility, which is open pods. And as you know, with what they've been doing with criminal justice and restorative justice, the number of the individuals who are now in the South Tower, which were kind of meant for minimum security, is probably the most least impacted. And that has gone from 23 million to 25, which is just $1.2 million. And finally, Judge, when we get to classification and release, about $1.7 million. And the reason Central Kitchen has gone up, as you know, those individuals who historically would have been candidates for trustee status and all, we've had to employ individuals. Next page real quick.
Commissioner, when you get the chance also, can you talk about how people end up in the jail? The sheriff doesn't arrest people to get them in the jail. We've got 130 officers on the street, and they mostly do traffic and freeway management. And they rarely arrest folks. Exactly. So can you talk a little bit about how people end up in the jail and then how they become the custody of the sheriff? And
the law enforcement agencies, and as I said, she has generated a letter with the Class Cs and others, but for the most part, we operate a unit, and we've done this a lot because of the federal lawsuit. We operate a transfer unit every day. Now, that has nothing to do with other law enforcement agencies, even like the Tarrant counties and the Denton counties and the Collin county showing up at what we call, quote, jail chain. We think Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the optimal days, but hey, they may show up at any time. But the transfer units, we are clearly aware. Captain Rounds has now began to vet for us when we pick individuals up from these other areas. Dallas, of course, number one, they bring theirs straight here because they don't have a custody facility. Garland is the number 2 to Dallas, between Garland and Irving. Irving is basically the number 3. We run transfer units to all of those particular law enforcement agencies. We know how many Class A's we pick up, Class B's. We know how many felony warrants are cleared. And so as a result of our jail cell, we know exactly what's going on and, quote, for purposes of the lawsuit. We know how many are eligible for, quote, pretrial. We know how many are being, magistrated. We know how many are having personal bonds, etc. And so, again, that's all she does. She is the holding facility. Same way with ICE. She is the holding facility for law enforcement agencies. She does not even have the opportunity to say, hey, I told you don't bring marijuana under 2 into the facility. She does not have that opportunity. We can try to ask law enforcement to not do this. Judge Creuzot has made it very clear to law enforcement, I'm not going to spend time, but they continue to do it. We know day by day how many are coming into the facility. So I just want to talk about that in terms of the sheriff's budget. And when the request a week ago, said don't increase law enforcement, I was primarily out of 2,500 employees she had, like I said, 1,450 detention officers. The other are in those units, those criminal investigation units that she has. And then the rest of it's traffic. It's primarily freeway management, at which time we get funds from the North Central Texas Council of Government to assist us in freeway management. And that's all another deal. Last piece here is the sheriff's proposed budget. And here it is, based on from 2018 to 2022. Again, a lot of this has been around COVID. A lot of the dollars for this budget, and Dr. Watkins, you can speak to this. The overtime, a lot of this is overtime, but it's forced overtime. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to at all times be in compliance with the Texas Commission on Jail Staff. We don't have that opportunity not to. We don't have the opportunity with an annual inspection and subsequent pop-up inspections that they don't pull the records. They know the rounds. They know the caloric intakes. And so we know how many get into the grievance box. We know how many grievances are heard. We know, all of that. But when we talk about COVID, we've had COVID money addressing a lot of this overtime that's, quote, been mandated and volunteer. Doctor?
So we have the offset of expenditures from the CARES in this budget as well to offset the overtime for public safety and public health. And then you'll see the next few months, ARP, we pushed a lot of those eligible expenses into ARP funding so that they won't hit our general fund. So we'll be briefing those and getting additional information for you. Some of them we do know is a need there, and you'll see those first, like the jail medical mod piece, which I physically went over there and saw that they need someone to observe more on the floor observers. They don't have that, and it's a lot of movement going on. So that's one of the ones you'll see probably coming forward first on the ARP that I've discussed with Mr. Martin.
And that there's a different profile of a person in custody. I just talked about South Tower and minimum, but even in the medical units, they're having difficulty because you got a different profile of the inmate, person in custody in there, and therefore in transferring, you don't get a chance to transfer with one officer, you got to transfer with two. You don't get a chance to on remote bookends. Law enforcement agencies are doing that. The moment they remotely book them, we have to, the sheriff's department has to dispatch units to sit on those individuals until such time that they are brought into the physical custody of the downtown unit. So if they remotely book them in at various hospitals and all, she's having to do that. If you got females, I'm back to those females, whether they're having babies or just going to see the doctor, you don't get a chance to transfer with one individual. You got to have a minimum of two. And so I just want those individuals who had been, quote, concerned about whether or not we're increasing law enforcement budget for the sheriff. That is, it's strictly primarily overtime, and it's those particular statutory duties that she must do, first of all, to stay in compliance, number one, and number two, because that's what
All of us, at least I've received have had a lot of conversations with constituents regarding this exact topic. And even though I know that we've seen this information in the whole of the budget, could you please share this particular document? Because it just kind of brings it all very, very well.
So this is another plug for OpenGov, because this came out of OpenGov. So this report was a direct out of OpenGov, so I definitely would share it.
I appreciate it because it wasn't attached to the agenda.
And I just wanted to add, I have tremendous respect for kind of the step up in discussion that took place from this budget from last budget. We had a number of publicly concerned groups about the expenditures in law enforcement that basically kind of gave a broad, hey, just cut, right? That was last budget cycle. This budget cycle, there's kind of some more targeted suggestions. They still miss the mark in that they miss that bottom line that we have to deal with, that we don't control who we get into custody. We have to take care of them. And even if we were absent the Sandra Bland Act, there's no way on any of our watches we're going to allow degradation in the amount of individuals that are taking care of those individuals that are in custody that will allow someone the opportunity to hang themselves, right? But we would all be, extraordinarily upset that we failed for lack of effort in that regard. So, as the dialogue continues into next year, we're, at least from my own perspective, and I'm sure everyone else here on the dais is the same way, we're absolutely open to hearing creative ideas and solutions. But right now, when faced with our legal requirements and the cost of doing business to make sure that we're keeping people safe, this is what it has to be. There's no other way. Right. And I appreciate how the dialogue has stepped up, and it's always been extraordinarily respectful in that regard. So I thank those individuals that have reached out for that, and I want to continue that dialogue, but know that this is the way it has to be. And in many respects, I kind of unapologetically say, listen, this increase has to happen, but I'm still absolutely willing to work with you and find solutions as we can.
But we have 300 individuals in Dallas County that should be in the, quote, state hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those individuals, we're maintaining. They have been adjudicated for the state hospital, but we're having to maintenance them while they're here. And they're usually some of our most, again, challenged populations. And as such, you know, it creates, you know, real havoc. And I want it to be clear to the employees who are mandated. You know, the reason we inject that into our sanitation report, because we want to monitor. We want to know because that's our complaint. We want to know who's being mandated. And our heart goes out to them because, you know, 60% of the detention officers in Dallas County, those 1,450, are females. Most of our detention officers are females, and it's a real it's a challenge on families. I get that, but at the same time, you know, they've got to be able to maintain, you know, compliance. Number two, we didn't even talk about unfunded mandates. There was in the recent legislature, there were some things that came down.
And the sheriff is here.
Oh, the sheriff. Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, we've only been talking about this last hour. You want to come up and say anything else, Sheriff, or Chief, with regards to this budget? Come on, please.
As you come, can you talk a little bit about the unfunded mandates, which the sheriff is going to have to comply with in addition, which is going to require additional staff eventually?
Right, exactly. This is new legislation. No, let me say the latest unfunded mandate, and this is putting a challenge on them in terms of how they notify individuals. It's also going to put some pressure on the district clerk and all, but that's January. Theirs has become almost immediate in terms of how they've got to notify individuals. Their DMU unit is having some real challenges. We've got a standing running vacancy in that unit of about 12 to 13 individuals anyway. We've looked at the, you know, classification, the whole 9 yards, but that's a challenge. But now the latest legislature has added one more unfunded mandate. And so when you talk about that, in addition to, you know, the backup of 300 state hospital individuals, 250, 300 intermittent FMLA. You got, you know, it's the either a great the circular firing squad or a perfect storm. Either way, you got to manage it. They don't have any other opportunity. Sheriff?
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to this court for allowing us the opportunity to speak. We were in a meeting, and we got out of the meeting and tuned into the court, and we heard the discussion that was going on, so we thought we'd come over and see if there might be any questions or anything that we might add to the discussion. But specifically, Commissioner, you have been putting it out there. You've already been aligning it and explaining how it is that it works, because a lot of times people don't understand when you hear people say, well, they're requiring us to work mandated hours. Unfortunately, we are in that instance where people are required to work mandatory overtime. And we're working on some strategies to try to implement to reach a point where we're not having to make overtime a necessity. But in the meantime, we must stay in compliance. It's not an option to be out of compliance. And so in order to do that, we have to make sure that we adhere to the regulatory requirements in terms of staffing. So that's why we are where we are right now. You were talking about the unfunded mandates that continue to come down. And there is one that most recently came down that troubled me, and I learned about it when I went to the Sheriff's Association conference. 254 counties here in the state of Texas. The majority of those won't necessarily be affected to the degree that we are, because, as you know, the second largest, and here we are. That mandate is House Bill 766. Mm-hmm. What it does is it requires the Sheriff's Department to enter information concerning bond conditions on any given inmate. It says you must enter this ASAP, but it must be done within 24 hours. So while it's saying as soon as you can get to it, it's saying, but really we want you to do it within 24 hours, which for us, this size agency, is unheard of. It means that we're going to have to implement a whole new unit, a unit that will be attentive to getting the information from the magistrate's office. Once you get that information, enter that information into the system. If there are any modifications to be made in a person's bond conditions, guess what? We have to go back in there and change it ASAP, but within 24 hours. So all day, every day, doing this. If the bond conditions change up in the court, we got to make a modification in the system. ASAP at 24 hours. If the bond conditions change according to the magistrate, we got to make a modification. Anytime there is a change, we're going to have to implement that change, put that information in TCIC so that that information is available. Well, the question was, well, who's going to enter that information? Who's going to have time? And so we started looking around our various departments to try to see where we could find people who could do this. And guess what? We decided we need a whole new unit. 365 days a year, 24/7, we're going to have somebody who's entering and modifying this information, because the mandate is that the magistrate office has to use a specified form, a form that was implemented by DPS. And by the way, DPS didn't even have the form ready. September 1 came and went. There was no form. Right. So the Sheriff's Department took the initiative and said, you know what, we're going to make our own form because we know this is something that we're supposed to do. We gave it to the magistrate's office and we said, here you go, district clerk. This is the form that will trigger our personnel to start entering information, and not only to enter information, but it will be the form that we will use that will trigger a modification if information has to be changed. So that's one of those unfunded mandates that you're talking about. There's also a part of that regulation that says that we will, as best we can, make a good faith effort to call a victim and let a victim know the status of the perpetrator. Really? So, but we have to do that. And so we're having to fund positions. We're having to ask for positions. I think we're up to 24 positions now that we have looked at it and analyzed it and decided, okay, how are we going to be able to do this at minimum, yet we have to be mindful of people's time off. How are we best going to be able to do this? And so we've come up with a strategy now that says that we're going to need at minimum 24 people in this unit. Then there are little things like logisticals. Where are you going to put them? Now you got to find a place for them. Not only do you have to find a place for them, but guess what? They need equipment. So all of these things that we're having to do. And so when I heard this at the conference and I looked up at the presenter and I was, let me be frank, I was a little perturbed because it was someone local, someone from this North Texas region. And I was saying, why didn't you say that? Why didn't you tell me about that? Because while your agency will probably be okay to manage it, do you realize how big our agency is? Every day, all day, people's bonds are changing, conditions being modified. Do you realize what that's going to do for us? And so what we've done is what we always do. We look at it, we say, what do we need to do? And then we start marching. And that's where we are now. We're in the marching process. So I'm saying that to say that as you see coming across your desk requests for more people, and you go, well, didn't we just give them some more people? Yes, but guess what? We are constantly, forever, needing more people. And you know why? Because we take seriously what it is that we do. The people who work in those jails, while some of them complain, you know what? It's really okay, because in reality, this is their life. This is what they do. They take it seriously, they do it, and they do it well. And as human beings, at some point, you reach a point where you say, hey, can I get a break? And that's simply where our people are. We get that. We understand that. And we appreciate that. I shared with some of our cadets the other day how it was that when I was a young patrol officer, and it took a couple of 3 years before my agency would hire someone to give me a little, what I call seniority. One person, that's all I need. Hire one person and it'll give me some seniority, which will mean what? That every time there's a need for overtime, I won't be that person. And so I shared that story with them so that they could understand. I said, I get where you are. Because when you look at it, the first thing that happens is we say, okay, let's look at this thing seniority-wise. And so I wanted them to understand that we do understand. We do have an appreciation for what it is that they do. So I'll stop right there, Commissioner. Like I said, I think that you were doing a beautiful job in aligning it and explaining to everybody that this is not a choice. This is not, you know, I heard a gentleman last week, I think it was in Commissioner's Court, and one of the speakers said, and demand of the sheriff that she release 1,400 inmates so we can free up a tower. And I thought, okay, obviously you don't understand how that works. Even if I had the liberty, first of all, I don't have it, but even if I did, to stand at the door, turn the key and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let out 1,400 people, guess what? It wouldn't close the tower. You know why? Because we have other regulations that still apply that require us to put these over here because their offenses are minimal, put these over here because theirs are pretty bad, put these over here because these are the females, they can't be over here with them. And so you have to keep them separate. And people don't understand this. So when people say close a tower, they don't understand what they're asking for. It's keeping the towers well managed, if you will. That's what keeps our people safe. The people who are charged to our custody, to our care, to our control. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for coming this morning, because I know that there are a few other things on your plate to attend to. But I know I'm asked a lot of questions, exactly what you're talking about here. So recognizing that it was September 1 that House Bill went into effect, right?
Right.
But that basically the state doesn't have the forms ready. They're not really ready to implement at this point, or to direct us on what must be done.
Indeed.
And so what can citizens of residents of Dallas County look forward to regarding the magistration process and how in fact we're able to implement the...
We're doing it.
We're already doing
We're doing it.
Okay.
We're doing it.
I wanted to hear
Oh,
you
yes.
say, where are we on it? So that, what can I say then when people ask the
You
question?
can assure them that once we got the mandate and we knew what was required of us, that we started moving forward at that point to implement the process, and the process is in action today.
Okay, and I also realize too that there are going to be, there's a lot of moving parts right now, particularly with COVID and changes with Bland and all, I mean, just all the other
Yes.
kinds of things that having 100% of your staff positions filled is a little bit of a challenge right now too. So that's also going to be taken into account, I would imagine, in
Yes.
being able to implement fully.
Well, that's not as much, and again, it's not as much that they have a lot of vacancies. What's happened is that those intermittent FMLA, those positions are filled. They're just not showing up. And when they don't appear, they've got to mandate someone. And I want to commend the department, commend you, Sheriff, because when there was a complaint over a month ago about detention officers, 1,450 of them, your department began to look at all units and say, hey, SRT, a special response team, SRT, you need to come do it. And what they've run up on is licensing requirements. That has become a real, even though we got the new academy and all, do you know what it takes to get an officer through the requirement? You know, sometimes, especially like coming out of those towers, that's months. I mean, they don't get a chance to walk in one day. You say, you know what? I'm going to hire you off the street. hit the tower. It doesn't work like that. They've got to go through training, they've got insert, they got T-claw, they got a number of issues. And so I just applaud you for using all of your units, regardless of where they are, said, hey, all of y'all got to help out. We see it in our sanitation report. We know who's mandated. We know who's volunteering. We know where they are in the towers, etc. But the fact that you told everybody that all hands are on deck, it's made a difference. And we saw that in the last presentation tremendously in all towers. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Sheriff, I'm just going to say, I mean, I'm glad you are here today while Commissioner Price knows the beat better than anyone else. I mean, it's good to see you giving your input and presenting your department. You, at the end of the day, you are the elected official. And I know we have a lot of challenges. You know, yesterday we also have a facilities subcommittee where we're looking at the jail. I mean, not only you have some of the challenges that are mandated by state, we're also having challenges with outdated facilities. And I was very happy to see that this group, this Commissioner's Court, is very united to see how we can change that. And I know this is not going to be overnight, and I know this is going to take some time and money to just give the first step. So hopefully we can help in the process that you are. However, you know, some of these mandates are draconian. I mean, let's face it. I mean, in the new generation of employees, the new generation of workers, the millennials that want to work in diverse environments for innovation, for productivity, because they want to feel part of something, this is not going to work. What it worked with us 30 years ago, because we have to prove ourselves, because it was the way we were raised, you know, it's not going to work with the next generation. And we're seeing it with the fact that they don't show up. You know, we're having a hard time hiring. And the ones that we hire, you know, like Commissioner Price said, you know, are having issues because they have young families, because the new society wants to spend more time with their kids. They want quality of life. I mean, they're human resources that this COVID-19 society have changed everything as well. So I would like to see, Sheriff, from your perspective, and it doesn't have to be right now, I mean, what do you think we can do legally with jail standards? I mean, if we're going to design a jail that is more for the future, for the next 40 years of criminal justice system, what are some of the issues that you think, as a body, and I include you with the Commissioner's Court, legally or with jail standards, are the things that we can go and say, guys, the same way we're going to change the facilities, we need to change some of these rules and standards that are dated.
Well, and the issue is that these are regulations that come down from the state. They're not ones that we implement on our own.
So
and we already, as a staff, my staff and I, already sit down and talk about those things that you just expressed. And that is that folks, they want to come to work and they want to go home. They want to go and play.
Yes.
We understand. We understand that
So
there's changes that are taking place.
How can we do to this, you know, who and how is the roadmap that you believe will be effective in changing some of these things? Because obviously that is sometimes what the public wants to see. And sometimes it's hard to understand for the average people. Are you serious? 16 hours in a row? And then if I don't have anybody, they have to work another 16? That's humanly almost impossible.
And it's unfortunate, but it is where we are. And today
Correct.
we realize that we compete against places like Buc-ee's,
No.
Amazon,
And I
and
know,
all of those
Sheriff, I
places
mean,
to get people
trust
in.
me, I get it. I mean, sometimes they even make more. That's what this Commissioner's Court has made imperative, that workforce development, like, you know, Dr. Watkins just talked about, has been a priority for, I believe, at least for me, has been a priority. Be sure that my workforce gets trained, gets energized, and they want to stay to be the next generation of, you know, Dallas County employees. But we're going to have to go into how do we change things. And honestly, I wouldn't know where to start. I will depend on your knowledge and your, you know, roadmap to go ahead and do what we need to do to change some of this. Because this is not going to work, Sheriff. This is not going to make it easier for you or for anyone, including our employees, in the next generation of, you know, employees, DSOs in Dallas County.
I appreciate your input, and as I said, we're already thinking along those lines.
How do we do
Yes.
it? Do we go to the legislature? Do we go to jail standards? Who are the bodies that we need to go ahead and say, hey, guys, we need new standards, we need new rules?
Jail standards is it?
Well,
Yeah,
again,
And that's, and
I
they
mean-
take it, they take their direction primarily from the legislature.
we need to do it, and we need to do it fast. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sheriff, so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Chief.
Veronica, since a lot has been said, I don't want the public to lose sight of the main points here as far as what they're interested in. So let me ask you some quick yes or no questions, if I could, about this, all right? We're not increasing any capacity to house more people in the jail, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. And we're not increasing the capacity to go out and arrest people in this budget, correct?
No, sir.
All right. What we are doing is we're spending more money on overtime because of vacancies and absenteeism in a time of COVID, correct?
Yes, sir.
And also, we're spending $3.8 million more on mental health under the Sandra Bland Act to help people who have serious mental illness or addiction issues in our jail, right?
Yes, sir.
And we are increasing the cost, not the cost, we're increasing the expenditure towards nutrition and other programs that are a benefit to people who are incarcerated, correct?
Yes, sir.
And those people who are incarcerated are there because they were arrested by other agencies and sent to
Correct.
jail, correct?
Correct.
And the law requires that Dallas County, as the jailer, the sheriff, as the jailer for the county, house those people, whether she agrees, disagrees, or has no opinion with the city of so-and-so's decision to arrest the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're gonna make a decent lawyer one day. Okay, thank you.
That was very good, Judge.
All right.
I think there's a lot of
I think
confusion out there on
After all that,
what.
I'm gonna ask for, oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, I really thank you, Judge, for going through those questions, because those are the questions emails that we get saying, hey, why are you jailing more people? Why are you doing this and that? And the reality is, I think this presentation, clears, I hope, clears some of the issues that we are having. And obviously, Judge, as you say, we are mandated by state law to have a jail.
Good.
So, thank you, Judge.
Motion to,
And let me say, it's because we talked a lot.
No.
Let me say again, 3 times, are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments?
motion to close the public hearing on the Dallas County budget.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We'll now have a public hearing on the Parkland tax increase. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And let me just say in that last one, I don't know why I'm getting these texts, but somehow the sheriff's presentation didn't live stream, and so I'm sending it out, but it was up, but they said they weren't getting it on the live stream for some reason. Okay, thank you.
So this is Parkland's tax rate increase. It says notice of public hearing of tax increase, and this is just giving an opportunity for public discussion, public input, if there is some. So the proposed tax rate for Parkland is .255000 per 100 valuation. The no new revenue rate is .24498 per 100 valuation. So the proposed is slightly higher than the no new revenue rate, but when you look at 2020, their tax rate was .266100, and then the proposed for 2021 is .255000, which represents a decrease overall of .011100.
So what you're saying is the decrease in tax rate, very clearly stated, right?
So it decreased as far as their tax rate from last year, from 20,
Right.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And
And
it
so,
will, but it will, the revenue generated will allow Parkland to continue providing the services they need to provide.
yes, ma'am.
Did you read the word, I just want to make sure in answering those questions, did you read the statutory required words for this tax increase?
So the proposed tax rate is greater than the no new revenue tax rate. This means that Dallas County Hospital District is proposing to increase property tax rates for the 2021 tax year.
Correct.
It's higher than the no new revenue rate, but less than the voter approval rate.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure we've got the statutory wording said for the hearing. Is we covered?
Yes.
I think it was.
Judge, I'm going to bring you that language right now.
Okay.
Just to
Why
make
don't
sure
you
that the
just read
motion.
it out loud, Russ?
Well, because the motion to adopt is supposed to include the language. So
Do you
whoever's
have it,
making the
Councilman?
motion.
All right.
If this is the correct provision.
So this is for the public hearing?
Who wants to make the motion?
I can make it, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love
Give
to
her
make that motion.
your Surface Pro.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but we'll have that language when you adopt the tax.
Yes, so he has the language for you for the adoption of the tax
Okay,
rate.
Dr. Garcia will make the motion, so can you email her the language? Or email it to all of us? Russ?
Yeah.
Great.
And just for the record, the hospitals were not required exactly the non-new revenue, and that's why the discrepancy in the language has to be addressed today.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, okay, but it has to be done because it's not the effective rate, it's not the no
Correct.
recovery rate, even though we're approved, right?
Yes.
And I'm not gonna support it regardless, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I got it.
Yeah, I think we need to say those words before we ask for the public speaker, so, the-
We can ask for the public speaker, Judge, it doesn't matter, because we don't have any
You need a
public speakers,
section
but
26.
ask for all of them anyway.
Which,
The language the judge is talking about?
Why are we doing this at the last minute?
a motion to adopt an ordinance setting a tax rate that exceeds the no new.
Yes.
Judge, if you want to move on to the corridors, you can pull that one out.
All right.
We can adopt the other items and then hold off on the two tax rate adoptions that need the language, if you like.
all right, we'll just hold this, public hearing and suspension. If somebody just will hand me the language, I'll read it out loud real quick.
And they sent me some language, is this it?
Okay, please read the language then, if you
No,
would.
no, no.
I don't
You
know.
if that's
The
language.
reason I don't want to read it is because I still see them. This doesn't read right.
Set the language.
And I have sent the language. They're just getting her the figures that need to go in the blanks.
Okay.
So how about them Cowboys?
No, we're gonna say
Yeah, y'all
whatever
are
this
still in the
language
public.
is that the legislature requires so the public will have it. Then we're gonna call for speakers 3 times. Then we're gonna move to the next thing.
And then that language is going to be the language that's going to be required at the time the motion is made to adopt the tax
Well,
rate.
since you have the language, could you say it so the public will have it, so I can ask them if they'd like to speak? Whatever language the legislature wants the
I
public to
can read
hear.
it, but without budget providing the numbers, it doesn't mean anything.
I got you. Does budget not know the numbers?
Plug in the numbers.
I got you, okay.
No, I see that we're already under the full audit in the elections.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how.
Oh, we're gonna pay. Who's gonna pay?
Yeah, all of that, I've asked all of that, I want to know.
I mean, we just got the email on the basis of the audit. Have you seen the email? The email that they.
All right, Judge. Obviously, the commissioner will repeat this at the time that she makes a motion to adopt, but the statute provides that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.255000 per $100, which is effectively a 4% increase in the tax rate.
Okay.
So moved.
Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we'll consider our court orders. We know that 1 through 3 must be voted on separately. Is there a motion on court orders J 1 through 10, pulling 1, 2, and 3 for separate votes,
Can we pull 5 for separate vote as well?
and 5 for separate vote?
I'll move 1 through 10, pulling 2, 3, 4, and 5 to separate vote.
Second.
And 1.
That's it, did I say 1? I said, yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 5, the separate vote.
All right, is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next before us is court order number 1, Dallas County, Parkland Hospital District tax rate.
500?
Commissioner Garcia?
4% increase.
Go ahead.
Hold on, Judge, I got it right here. So I'm just going to read what you sent me, right, Judge?
Yeah.
Just with
You
these
move-
numbers
You
to
move the
begin.
Dallas County Hospital District tax rate
A motion to adopt an ordinance, resolution, or order setting a tax rate that exceeds the no revenue tax rate but be made in the following form. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.255000, which is effectively a 4% increase for the proposed tax, because of the proposed tax exceeds the non-new revenue tax rate. % increase in the tax rate.
Okay, that's it. That's a motion. I hang a second.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Right. Motion carries 4-1. Next is court order number 2.
The
Dallas.
adoption of the Dallas County FY 2022 budget. I so move, Judge.
I've got to read just a minor change into the record on that.
On budget?
On the budget, correct.
Okay.
There were a couple of dates that were, I need to change on that. So if you could, I'll just read the entire item on there for the agenda, just for the record. So this is the budget adoption, Dallas County fiscal year 2022 budget adoption. Background, each year the Dallas County Commissioners Court adopts an annual budget as prescribed by Chapter 111 of the Local Government Code. Operational impact, whereas Chapter 111 of the Local Government Code prescribes the method by which the Dallas County Commissioners Court shall adopt an annual budget. And whereas a budget for the fiscal year and beginning October 1, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022 has been proposed by the budget officer. And whereas the proposed budget has been filed with the county auditor and county clerk as prescribed by law. And whereas a public hearing on the proposed budget was conducted on September 29th, 2021, as prescribed by law. And whereas the salaries and allowance of certain elected officials have been proposed and published in the Dallas Morning News, and appropriate notifications to these elected officials have been given. Recommendation: adopt and approve the proposed budget for Dallas County for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30th, 2022, pursuant to Local Government Code, Chapter 111, with totals for salaries and benefits, operating capital, and reserves as the budgetary control levels. And the motion reads, on a motion made by to be determined and seconded by to be determined, the following order will be voted on by the Commissioners Court of Dallas County, State of Texas. Be it resolved in order that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby adopt and approve the proposed budget for Dallas County for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022, pursuant to Local Government Code, Chapter 111, with totals for salaries and benefits, operating capital, and reserves as the budgetary control levels.
And Judge, with that, I make that motion for the adoption of the Dallas County FY 2022 budget with that language.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Just quick, I'm going to be supporting the budget this time because of its significant commitment to the employees. As I expressed before, I'm extremely disappointed that we're doing a 3.3% raise for our elected officials, and there's two things that I just want kind of looked after here as we go forward. I know it was not possible to do direct appropriation this year because the auditor's office is going through a significant transition, moving to Oracle Cloud. And I know that there's been a general commitment from administration and from budget to move to that direct appropriation as soon as possible. That probably should be the next budget cycle, so I'm anticipating seeing that and grateful that we're moving in that direction. And then, just the only other worry that I wanted to express was the ARP funds. We are using them well. They're placed well, but when you see, that's 35% of our budget, I know most of those funds are going to be spent in a way that's a direct grant, and there's not going to be technically a ton of follow-up maintenance and operation on those funds when they go out. But as we've all seen in the past, if an organization that we're working with, be it a city or any other partner, institutional partner, starts to flounder or has some type of problems, they're going to come back to us as the source of those funds. So we really got to bird dog that essentially in the next 2 years in order to make sure that we're not adding systemically 10% onto our future budgets from these investments. Rather, these investments should be things that bend the cost curve. They should be something that, we take a good bite out of many of the issues regarding homelessness related to mental illness and, drug addiction and abuse, to dig ourselves out of the hole that we have and be able to spend less money in the future for it. So I think that we are planned to make that happen, but the execution is what matters. And I know that we have the folks that can get it done. So I'll be watching that closely, and thank you for your work in advance.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is court order number 3, the Dallas County tax rate.
You want to read this on because it's no new revenue?
Sure. Dallas County tax rate adoption, I move the special language only needed if exceeding no new revenue rate. State the following move. I move that the property tax rate be adopted at the no new revenue rate of 0.227946.
You need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. And the reason I said to the judge, I've said to the court before, and I recognize the fact that it's $3.25 per month if we did not adopt the no new tax rate. And I said, and nobody on this court except me, and I voted against it, this county has left $18 million because of a senior tax freeze in the cumulative on the table. And when Dallas County works on the margins, then this has, as far as I'm concerned, it has tremendous impact. And therefore, I will not be voting for the no new tax rate or the what we used to call the effective rate. I will not be voting for it.
And I just want to make a comment as well. While I be supporting it because of the pandemic and because I know that people out there are still suffering from the effects of this pandemic, I am going to support it. But I completely understand what Commissioner Price is saying. I mean, I believe that, Dr. Watkins, you say that it will save $36 and some cents in a $200,000 home. $36, I know it's a lot of money for some people right now, but Commissioner Price is right. I mean, in the future, I think we'll be okay this budget and probably next budget, but I expect, that 2024 will be a different year, and I am concerned that we will be in the position where we have to increase taxes, and it's something that at that point I cannot support. So with that being said, I will support it this year because of the economic situation in Dallas County, and because it's necessary for continue to, retain our workforce. And I'm very happy, Dr. Watkins, that you and I have the same energy and we like the same things. What is the best things about this budget? So with that, I will be supporting it, and the motion has been done. I move that the property tax rates be adopted at the no-new revenue tax rate of 0.227946.
Call the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. All right, this,
Five.
This one is 5, Judge. I need the criteria for court order number 5.
all right.
You move it,
Any
Commissioner?
any discussion?
I second. Sorry.
We both second, I can third it.
I'd asked a question of administration, the cost of kind of going forward to draw new maps, because this is essentially the criteria order. Can I just get some answers on that? I got an email with something pulled up by the auditors that last time with one of the vendors, it cost us $400,000. Was that the entire cost of redistricting?
Commissioner Koch, that's the specific question I asked the auditor, and that's the response from the first assistant, yes. Now, there's some confusion in the email because I mentioned the names of 4 individuals, and the auditor responded that only one was doing the billing, Mr. Hebert. I believe the agreement was he submitted all the bills for them, for the lawyers. He, Chad Dunn, and Rolando Rios. And I don't know if they had an agreement among themselves how they'll divide the money. But that's the response from the auditor. And you can see my email at the bottom where I asked that's what specific question I asked of them.
Okay, so is it a potential that this cost more than $400,000 last time around, or?
I don't know, Commissioner, again, because you saw the question I asked was how much did we pay the last 10 years we did redistricting to these 4 individuals? And that's the response I got.
Commissioner, I was in a audit meeting with the sheriff when they were asked for this information. I haven't had a chance to go back and look at it. When I go back to the office, I'll double check because it came in a lot of pieces. So we'll double check. It's a good possibility it's higher than that.
Do we have any cost estimates given to us by the Angle Group?
Well, I'm sorry.
Do we have any cost estimates for this redistricting round from the Angle Group? Do we have any forward-looking?
No, none.
Okay.
And remember, those are just external costs. We had a bunch of internal costs as well. We are the ones who developed the maps and that did all of that. Those are all internal work that was done. So we have departments that work and help out with the external work.
Okay.
So,
I mean, since we're in a place where, we're within various to not have to redraw these maps, I think we probably should have kind of a compiled cost before we say yes on the criteria, because that means, yes to drawing new maps.
The criteria won't change.
Isn't this just part of their product, their package? And I know that there's a relationship, but.
Adopting the criteria, Commissioner Koch, is part of what we have to do regardless.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't
wondering
impact
if we
the
should
work
get
they do after that.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering if, within the criteria, should we have a deviation trigger, say, if we're above a deviation of 2%, then we go and draw new maps, rather than spending tax money where we don't need to. Yeah.
But isn't this the rules of the game as opposed to how you're creating an invoice?
Right.
Yep.
Right, if you want to propose from a policy standpoint, well, maybe we shouldn't redraw maps, we can save money here or whatever. This is more about, following the Voting Rights Act, taking into consideration the criteria that are the best practice for redistricting. If there's a best practice that you see that's missing from some other case or whatever, we can add it in there. But what you're talking about is more of a policy. Should we have 5 JPs or 4 JPs? Should we redraw if there's this deviation or that deviation? Those are policy questions,
Yeah.
not.
We did it again.
So am I?
Verizon has been named a
What happened?
That was something that popped up in my computer.
But by approving this, are we triggering the spending with the outside counsel? I just.
that contract with Mr. Huber and his group,
we
Mr. Heiko, correct me if I'm wrong, has already been brought before the court?
Yes, the contract to hire these same individuals was already approved by the court. I don't remember what month it was, but it's already been approved by the court. Reviewed by the DA's office and then approved. That's the form and approved by you.
All right. That's all.
If there's no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll adjourn now for our closed session, which should be a brief one. If you're not a member of the closed session, we will need you to go. And we'll be considering matters in our closed session under Chapter 551 of the Government Code as previously posted. The action as a result of the closed session will take place in a subsequent open session. That closed session will begin in 2 minutes.
Another one by
Do you know on Corridor 6 and 7, who moved it and who seconded it already?
I moved it,
Yeah.
and Commissioner Garcia, second.
Okay.
Yeah, and that won't even matter, I mean, that's fine if you want to do that, but anybody on the prevailing side can reconsider.
Right, motion, okay.
Okay, now we're back on the record, are we? All right, now we're back on the record from our closed session. There is action from the closed session that needs to take place in an open session. We're going to have a motion to reconsider corridors number 6 and 7.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Price, you want
Yes, I'm motion to reconsider is on the prevailing side on corridors number 6 and 7. That's a motion to reconsider.
All
So
right.
moved.
Your second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by
Wait,
saying.
we gotta add blank.
Fill in the blanks?
No, the motion to reconsider.
Oh, right, sorry, I apologize.
It's okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
All right,
Now, on court order number 6,
I believe 6 and 7,
yeah.
Right.
It is,
adding in the name of an attorney.
So the name,
Tammy,
right, the name is Tammy Ardorf, Ardolf,
and.
for
Judge-
both 6 and 7.
And, Judge, I made the motion and I'll move it again. 6 and.
All right, so all those in.
Wait, we need a second.
Oh, I need a second.
Second.
Second from Dr. Garcia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This concludes this special meeting of the Commissioners Court. The court stands adjourned.
Thank you.